Something I do really want to talk about is how sequels and endings can just ruin everything about a series. And this is prevalent in every form of media. Well, okay, that might not be true. I don't think bad endings really affect music that much, probably, but TV shows, movies, books, comic books, manga, anime, all this shit. Oh, movies. Did I say movies? If not, movies, big time. All of these things can be completely ruined by either bad endings, obviously, or bad sequels. And it doesn't just have to be bad sequels in the sense that they're bad movies, it can be bad sequels in how they tie into the overall like arc of the movie, or not arc of the series, right? I'm going to give you an example from my life of a series that I very much enjoy, and that's Blade. The Blade movies, say what you want about them, I'm definitely nostalgic for them. I loved them as a child. I still love them to this day. Blade 1, super good, very dated, right? I mean, it came out a long time ago and it was using CG for things it probably shouldn't have been. Blade 2, I like even more than Blade 1. Really, really big fan. And then Blade 3 comes along and brings some shumfuckery into the series that absolutely doesn't belong. And it makes me enjoy Blade 1 and 2 a little bit less, having seen Blade 3 and being like, what? There was like a god demon vampire just out there all along? That's really weird. And this is actually becoming a pretty big problem. You know, back in the day, there weren't a lot of Blade 3s out there, right? Like, things got sequels and they were usually always worse, right? Like, what's a random example? I really should have thought. A Taken. If you guys have seen the movie Taken with Liam Neeson, big fan, or I am, of Taken 1, and they were like, well, this made a lot of money. This did better than we expected, so let's capitalize on it again. And they basically, you make Taken 2, 3, I don't know, there's probably 17 Takens, I don't even know. But usually these sequels play it really safe, and they do like the exact same thing with just some minor changes, and it's almost always worse, but not that much worse, and it's roughly the same thing. However, bringing back the term shumfuckery from before, that is becoming a lot more commonplace, where we're seeing this happen in huge series. And I want to bring up two specific non-anime or manga examples to you guys. One for each, one for a bad ending that ruins everything, and one for sequels that ruin everything. The first one, we'll just get right into it because this has been talked about so much, we'll just breeze through, and that's Game of Thrones. I, like many people, was a big fan of Game of Thrones, right? I enjoyed the first 6 seasons very much. And then seasons 7 and 8 were, 7 was tolerable and 8 was horrendous, right? And the reason for that is because it wasn't just that the ending was bad of 8. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, it wasn't just that we didn't get to see who we wanted on the Iron Throne, right? It wasn't just because Bran got the throne. That's not why we cared. It's because characters that we enjoyed were eviscerated. And the problem with that is that it is not a standalone thing. Game of Thrones Season 8 isn't just an isolated incident. It affects everything that came before it. And that's really what I wanted to talk about with bad endings and sequels. The main point I want to drive home is that a bad ending or a bad sequel can basically negate your fans' enjoyment of the previous material. So with Game of Thrones, let's say that your favorite character, you loved Jon Snow. You absolutely adored his character. Well, the problem is, even if you wanted to, let's say you watch season 8 and you're really, really sad. You're upset about how bad it was, and you're like, well, I just want to go back to when I enjoyed the show. I just want to go rewatch seasons like 1 through 4. The problem is, you're now seeing things knowing that, okay, my favorite character, Jon Snow, this is all pointless what I'm seeing because he's going to turn into a bumbling fucking idiot in season 8. So how can I, this is all pointless. I'm watching this knowing that it ends up in garbage. Now let's talk sequels, and I brought it up a little bit with the whole Blade 3 thing, but there's an even better example. But before, I guess I will just say it, and that's the new Star Wars films. I've said it before, I'm not really a fan of Star Wars. The original trilogy is just too old for me. Like, I didn't watch it growing up on account of I was born decades after it came out. Even the prequel trilogy kind of predates my childhood a little bit. I mean, I'm not nostalgic for Star Wars. I'm not a big science fantasy fiction type of guy. That being said, I was a Star Wars moderate enthusiast before. I enjoyed the prequels a little bit. The original trilogy was kind of fun, and then the extended media, games, and whatnot, I really liked. Well, the problem is, I am now an active hater of Star Wars. I completely dislike it because, in the main storyline, where everything goes is garbage. Side note, I do genuinely think that the new Star Wars trilogy is probably the worst filmmaking in modern history, in case you were curious. But I hear you ask, why is this such a bad thing? Why is it so bad? Like, why are these sequels so terrible? Is it just because the writing is terrible? No, yes and no. I mean, they're bad standalone films, but they commit essentially the biggest sin that a sequel can possibly do, and that is change the rules of the universe it takes place in. Right? Again, I'm going to give you guys a specific example. So if you don't know anything about Star Wars, this isn't going to make a ton of sense for you. But in the new Star Wars trilogy, we get the old classic fucking beautiful Holdo maneuver, where you essentially just suicide bomb your ship directly the fuck into anything and you just obliterate it. It is like, I don't know, 17 million nukes going off in terms of its destructive capabilities, which, when you think about it, you're like, huh, that doesn't really make any sense, because the whole plot of like the original trilogy, or one of the big plots, was we gotta blow up this friggin' Death Star, this big old ball in space. And we have to do it in this really specific way where we go in this hole and like we shoot this one part. But now it's like, well, those guys were fucking idiots because they could have just crashed one ship into it. Boom, problem solved. And so that's something that sequels should never do. You can try and expand upon rules of the universe. I wouldn't usually recommend it because, again, the best thing to do is just stick to established rules as a sequel and try and elevate the story. But you can expand upon the rules and not completely ruin everything. However, when you try and change them, that's when it almost always ends in disaster. And so, at the end of the day, sequels are just kind of a bad concept. And I know it sounds weird because you see something and you're like, man, I really liked that. I sure would like more of that. But the problem is, unless you start out a storytelling journey planning for a sequel or sequels, it's very difficult to do. Another example I can give you guys, and these are all obviously personal preference, right? Especially for movies are like the most subjective form of media, I think, other than music. But there's a movie series, very beloved. I loved number 1, liked number 2, and hated number 3, and that is John Wick. And the problem I had was John Wick at its core was a really simple movie, and this is an example that can apply to a lot of different things. But the original was a very simple concept, right? And 2 expanded upon it a little bit, and then by the time we got to the third movie, everything had been expanded upon too much. And now there was too much information, and it ruined a lot of the mystique that the original movie had. And I think it can be chalked up to, I very highly doubt that when they made John Wick 1, they had any plans for John Wick 3. So, here's my advice to you this is the takeaway from this video. We finally got here. It only took us, 76 minutes? That's how long it feels like I've been talking. Here's the takeaway from the video, though. Probably stay away from sequels and do a good job writing your ending. However, if you are someone who wants to make sequels, make sure that you plan out your sequels from the start. Do not try and just tack on a sequel to the end of your series. It will never come out good. I don't care what you say, that has never worked before. The only time sequels work is when you plan them from the start, and even then, they're still usually not that good. There are so few sequels out there that are better than the original movie they came from. I could probably count it on one hand. I'm not going to because this video is too long. Thanks for watching. That's all I wanted to talk about. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this video. Maybe I'll just put a still image of a clown. Maybe it'll just be a black screen. It'll probably just be random anime clips. Whomst the fuck knows? I didn't really talk about anything specific enough to like make a video for in terms of visuals. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave any video ideas you have in the comments below. Join the fucking Discord. Follow me on Twitch. And watch all my videos 17 times with ad blocker turned off. Thank you.